Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us at the February 20th, 2025 meeting of the Humboldt County Association of Governments Board. We'll call this meeting to order. Can we get a roll call?
Chair Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember Napier,
Here.
Supervisor Madrone,
Here.
Mayor Burgell,
Here.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar,
Here.
Councilmember Jorgensen,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kenny, Councilmember Orr, PAC Member Arroyo,
Here.
PAC Member Allstrand.
Here.
Thank you. And our first order of business is to adjourn as the HCOG Board and reconvene as the Policy Advisory Committee, followed by a ask for public comment on non-agenda items. I don't believe we have any at this time. So we will close public comment and move to the consent calendar. We have 4 items: the approval of the meeting record from January 16th, the fiscal year 25-26 TDA LTF apportionments, the County of Humboldt 24-25 LTF claim, and the City of Riedel local match fund request. Would anybody like to pull anything? And don't see any public comment. So can we get a motion?
Motion to approve consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. So we don't have any items removed from the consent calendar. So at this time, we will move to the action items in the draft 25-26 OWP and budget.
Before we start, did you say somebody has public comment? Do you want to ask again if anybody has public comment?
We can. I see a person has joined us online. If that person has any public comment on non-agenda items or the consent calendar. I don't see a raised hand, or they're still muted.
Okay. So did you already say the OWP? I'm sorry, I missed it because
Yes.
I was worried about the
We
public
are at
comment.
that
All right,
point.
here we go. So what I'm bringing before you tonight is the fiscal year 25-26 overall work program and budget. I just want to note that prior to Beth's departure, she had started the process of this budget and OWP. And so what I'm bringing forward is what she had already started and what she had planned on recommending to the board. Outlined in the staff report is the majority of the work elements that are in this OWP are carryover from this fiscal year. And I do want to bring up that the main change is the inclusion of the Climate Action Plan Committee and the Climate Program Manager that is outlined in Work Element 14. If you recall at your December meeting, Beth, and I think September meeting both, Beth had brought to your board the possibility and discussion of having the Climate Action Committee and the Climate Program Manager be taken over by HCOG, or it becoming part of HCOG. And so I just wanted you to know that I have placed that in this OWP as a placeholder, but there still is research that needs to be done on that. And as the interim executive director, I did not feel like it was my place to continue the research on it, but I wanted to place it in there, and I will turn this information over to your new ED so that a decision can be made and brought back to you at a different meeting. The budget also includes 5 full-time employees. Those positions also include one being if one of the planners from HCOG steps into that Climate Action Manager position, and if that does happen, it will leave a planner position open and available for recruitment. The budget also reflects a 3% cost of living increase that is derived from the Bureau of Statistics. And it also is asking to promote the Administrative Services Officer into the Fiscal Administrative Officer position because she has been doing those duties since December 2022 when I retired. And so with your approval, we will submit this OWP to Caltrans for their review and comment, and it will be brought back to this board in May for final approval. And so I will entertain any questions.
Is there any questions from the board or the PAC? We are the PAC and the board.
I don't have a question, but I just have a comment just in looking through things, just kind of going off of what Debbie was saying regarding the Climate Action Committee and Program Manager. I am still very curious about that, but one thing that I've learned recently is, we're in the beginning stages of that, and that conversation hasn't made it to the PAC yet, or the Technical Advisory Committee, sorry, the TAC. And I do think it's important to hear from that body as well to see how this might, how they feel it might impact our work overall. So I just want to be sure that, I guess I just was unaware that it hadn't been discussed with that group yet. So I just want to make sure that keep that in our mind.
Yes. And if I remember correctly, also this OWP has a number of grants in it.
It does.
And so a lot of this work in here, the different tasks are grant funded. So although we do have a large budget, it's not a lot of, it's paid for a lot of it. So,
The grants are paying for the budget, is that what you're saying?
well, grants are paying for a portion of the budget.
Yes. Yes,
Yes,
there's
yeah.
a lot of grants that are carried over from even the previous year and then this year that are being carried over into this next fiscal year.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, no comments, no other comments or questions. So do we have a motion?
Is this a receive and file?
This is we're asking for a recommendation to accept this draft OWP, and then we will turn it over to Caltrans for their review and comment.
I would motion exactly that.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Well, thank you. We have an OWP to forward on to Caltrans, and thank you for your work following Beth's work. And
Thank you.
so now we come to a pile of paper here. We reconvene as the HCOG board and by motion approve the HCOG board and PAC recommendations. If we can get a motion.
Move to reconvene.
And approve? And approve the PAC recommendations? Is that?
Yeah,
Thank you, Skip.
Yes.
I'll second that.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right. Now we come to action item 8 here, HCOG staff and PAC member reports. And our interim executive director report.
All right, thank you. So I will just report that we have been very busy and things have been moving along smoothly, which I really appreciate working with HCOG staff again. We were successful in sending out 2 RFPs so far. One of them just closed earlier this week, and we received 3 proposals, which I was very happy about. And it was for the Vision Zero action plan. That was the federal grant that Stevie had acquired before he left. And so I have 3 scorers scoring those, and so that will be brought to you next month to decide on a consultant to conduct that plan. The other one we have out is the fiscal and compliance audits. That one's not due back for another week or so. This one was a little hard. We've done this before and haven't received a response, so I'm really hoping that we get some good responses for the fiscal and compliance audit. And then tomorrow, Amy will be sending out the third RFP and the final one for this year, which is for the siting analysis for the North State Hydrogen Fueling Station. And so that will be brought back to you, hopefully with a decision on a consultant in April.
Awesome.
And that's all I have.
Thank you. And Caltrans reports. And I see we have Jeff there as well as you.
I don't have any updates today, so I'll hand it over to Jeff.
All right, good afternoon, almost evening. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great. So most of what I've got is probably a repeat from last time, but we now have both abutments for on the bridge for both the northbound and southbound approaches complete. Actually today when I was driving by, they were removing the forms on the southern abutment. So if you've all driven by there recently, you could also notice the wildlife motif that's on there now. I think it turned out really nice. So next we'll begin placing soil and lightweight fill. And when I say lightweight fill, those are foam blocks that we'll be placing in lieu of soil adjacent to those abutments as we as we raise the elevation of the future 101 to be in line with the bridge there up to that alignment. And by the end of summer, early summer, we expect to be complete with the bridge construction, but will not place traffic on the bridge immediately. Potentially by the end of this year, we do expect one direction of mainline 101 to be complete and traffic driving on it. There is a slight chance that that could be both, but we're uncertain at this time. Remaining items of work beyond those items are the southbound on and off ramps. The northbound on and off ramps are actually constructed now. Those, when you take the detour going in the northbound direction and you kind of do that S curve to the east and then back, those are the future ramps for the northbound on and off ramps. We still have the half signal Airport Road to construct, and then also decommissioning the median crossings between Eureka and Arcata and doing some on-site mitigation in those locations. So that's all I've got right now, but now that we're out of the ground and done with the column support and embankment installation, we're able to see a lot of things happening, and we've had some good weather, and now that we've got some material down on the ground there, we're able to do a lot more work this winter than we did previously, so that's also been good for progression of the project. And that's all I had. I can answer any questions.
A good report there. Yes, Supervisor Madrone.
Jeff, thanks for that report. I was just thinking that it would be nice to have these kind of unveilings as the art is exposed when the forms are pulled away, because it is really beautiful. And I applaud Caltrans for their effort over the last few years to basically include artwork into the forms, and it's really quite a pleasant improvement. So thank you for that.
Yeah, so what you were saying there is like maybe having some sort of a, I guess similar to how we do a groundbreaking or a ribbon cutting, doing some sort of an unveiling when we have artwork like this. Is that
Yeah, I think it's a real opportunity, public relations wise, because it's really quite a nice improvement. But
I like that suggestion, and it's not something I've thought of, but I think it's a great idea. And again, we're always looking for great ways to promote, I think, the good things that are happening out there. And I qualify this as one of those things. So I'll take that back to our department and look for other opportunities, because this will no doubt will not be the last one that has some sort of feature like that. So thanks for that suggestion.
Awesome. It does look good. And some of the other work up there by Requa and in Prairie Creek, and looks great.
South
Yeah,
Eureka
quite a
with the
few
bridge
structures.
paintings.
Yeah, and underneath,
Yep.
underneath at Samoa too. So,
Yeah, great suggestion. So I'll definitely bring that to our management group and look for other opportunities. So thanks.
Well, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Well, we'll move to anything from HTA.
Sure, thank you. Well, we're expecting the delivery of our first hydrogen bus at the end of March, so about a month from now. Very exciting. And we do have a temporary fueler in place, so we will be able to fuel it and use it. We will have some driver training and some, just some beta testing of it on the ground to do before we officially start utilizing it for our routes. But it's exciting, and we have more ordered, so this will be the first one. And our mechanics have worked on something new and are learning that process, and have gotten some great training. So definitely a whole new world of fueling. And otherwise, other projects, including the Transit Hub and the Earth Center in Eureka, are proceeding. That project has proceeded past the design review stage, so it'll be moving forward to some additional project design and planning, and then implementation likely in the next year, kicking off. So to be determined there as far as some of the mix of project funding streams, but that's moving forward. And let's see, I'll just say, like all of us, I'm tracking federal funding streams and what that looks like. And it looks like transit is, potentially some funding streams are at risk there. So time will tell. But I would urge everyone to stay tuned to that. I think transportation funding is, there's a lot of questions around it. So transit in particular, though, it looks like there's, anyway, I think it's too soon to speculate, but definitely trying to stay abreast of everything there to the best of my ability, and our general manager is as well. Happy to answer any questions if you have any about transit.
Any questions? Okay, well, thank you. And how about any board member reports? Anything happening? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got two updates. One, wanted to thank Debbie for being involved with our road ad hoc committee or subcommittee, where we discussed a larger committee to be formed to look at providing a recommendation to our board on what the split should be for Measure O. How much should go to transit? How much should go to roads? And boy, certainly the federal situation might affect that ultimate outcome. I hope not. I hope we continue to get our federal funding. But so that's really all this new subcommittee is going to be doing, is making a recommendation to our board on what should the split be. It's a big decision and an important one. We promised the voters that the vast majority of the money would go to the county roads, but we also wanted to make sure some of the money went to transit. So we're going to figure that out and provide a recommendation to our board. Once that recommendation is done, the transit side of things, we'll be working with the Social Services Committee of HCOG to kind of fine-tune how that money might be spent on transit. And then they'll provide a recommendation to HCOG, I'm assuming, who would then forward a recommendation to our board. So I just want to say it's really wonderful to be working in partnership with HCOG. And thank you, Debbie, for attending that and providing your input. And then on the road side of things, Tom Mattson will be putting together an annual budget and recommendations for where the money should go on roads. And he has already said that he wants to really try and focus it in areas rather than shotgun it and have equipment moving here, there, and everywhere, which is far more cost effective if you're mobbing and demobbing and all that kind of stuff. We have a lot of faith in Tom's knowledge of our road system and ability to put forth a good plan that would include monies to leverage federal, if there is any, and state dollars, as well as do overlays, maintain the roadside mowing, potholes, all the other things. So Tom would bring that recommendation to the TAC, and the TAC then would provide a recommendation to HCOG, which I'm assuming then would be forwarded to our board, and then our board would make that ultimate decision. And as board members, we've really said to ourselves, And we should not be getting involved in saying, well, what about my district, and that kind of stuff, right? And I think the TAC has an incredible, great track record of being really fair with each other and working really well together to look out for the interests of everything. None of this will be going to city roads. I think we all knew that. But when you look at our PCI, the county roads were like down, way, way down. So anyway, it's very exciting. And so our board has generally agreed to that process, but there's several more steps to go. The first monies will be collected, I believe, in April with the first quarter of the year from sales tax. And then we'll start having funding to hopefully be able to move forward on some pretty amazing work on our county roads finally, long overdue. So that's just the brief update there, and I could stop there and see if there's any questions on that, and then I have one more update.
Any questions for Supervisor Madrone? Any online? No? Thank you, Doug.
Yeah.
Is there any idea what the potential will be for Scenic Drive? I ran that at Clam Beach, and it's incredibly bad,
Falling into the sea.
for lack of a better word.
Yeah, so two things. One, several years ago, before I took office, I discovered that Scenic Drive wasn't even on HCOG's list to be considered for funding. And as you know, you've got to get onto the regional transportation list, RTP plan, to even be considered. And that requires an entity to be willing to step up and run that project. So when I took office, I said, Tom, we really need to put it on the list, and I'd love it if you would consider supporting that. And he did. And so it's now on HCOG's list. That's one step. Second step is that our board has prioritized, I think, 3 or 4 projects for earmarks, federal earmarks, if there is any earmarking money. And Scenic Drive is one of those projects. The Redway Garberville Complete Streets project on Redway Drive has been in process for years with funding from HCOG and others, and it's ready to go to construction, but it's about a $12 million project. The Humboldt County Lab for Public Health is another project that's getting built, or going to get built, up across the street from Semper Virens on a parcel we bought, and I think that's a $5 million project. I can't remember the third one. Anyway, Scenic Drive is a third one, and we've asked for a $1 million earmark to do the engineering and design analysis for what would need to happen. The good news is, while it seems to be falling into the sea, just 50 to 100 feet down, there's bedrock. And so it's expensive, but you can engineer fixes on that road, like was done 10 years ago on one of the walls up by Lufenholt's trail down to the beach, and it's lasted beautifully. So there's hill-thicker walls, there's all kinds of engineering solutions, and it's a good environment to be able to build those, but they cost millions of dollars. We estimate it might be $14 to $20 million or actually $30 or $40 million to actually make Scenic Drive stable. And it is part of the California Coastal Trail, literally. When we took over Scenic Drive, just the last piece of history from Caltrans, because it used to be Highway 1 back in the 50s, and until the 64 flood, and then the new highway got built in 67 or so. And when that happened, Caltrans came to the county and said, well, we're not going to maintain both. You'll need to take over Scenic Drive because we're going to maintain 101, which was logical. But at that point in time, there was actually already about a $10 million, $12 million deferred maintenance on Scenic Drive. So we've been in discussions with Congressman Huffman as well as Senator McGuire. But if we can get that $1 million, we can get the project started towards readiness. And so the point I've made to our board was that, if we get offered the $12 million, we're going to do Redway Drive. That's been on the books for a long time. If we get $5 million, we'll probably do the lab. If we only are offered $1 million, we could do Scenic Drive. So we've got options for those that might provide us with those earmarks. So that's where we're at. In addition, Lufenholtz Creek is Scenic Drive's a barrier to salmonids, to steelhead and cutthroat trout, and has a lot of habitat above there. So that may be a separate project within a project to remove that barrier and to change that around and stuff. So that's hopefully enough background there.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for the question.
Thanks for the update.
You bet. And then the last update is on the California Coastal Trail again, and that is at Little River. So as you all know, you either get on the freeway to cross Little River or you don't go across. Well, unless you're on the Clam Beach run and you run across, right? With a rope and all that good stuff.
High it is,
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty high, wasn't it, for the race? Yeah.
They postponed it an hour because it was so high.
Yeah, you had to wait for the tide to go out. And yeah, yeah. At any rate, the Caltrans worked with Redwood Community Action Agency and the State Coastal Conservancy with a grant over the last several years to put a project plan together. And they've completed that a year or two ago, and they've gotten it to a 30% design phase, which includes mostly a shifting of the lanes because the shoulders there are like 12, 14 feet wide. There's room to shift lanes and create room on the west side of the bridges for the trail, although maybe not quite enough, so there might need to be an expansion of the bridge platform by a couple of feet. So that got to a 30% design phase, and I'm in the process of working with Tony Simonovich, if I got that correctly, and Caltrans team, Coastal Conservancy staff, county staff, RCAA staff, and Trinidad Coastal Land Trust staff to convene a meeting in about a week and a half to take a look at that 30% design and to discuss how we now take it to final design, permitting, and then get the money to build a separate trail and bridge piece of the trail from Cornell Road up to Scenic Drive to make that connection from the Hammond Trail into Scenic Drive, and then we get into the Scenic Drive project as we go along into the future. So we're making progress, and that 30% design has a shelf life, so we're trying to strike while the iron's hot, and luckily the State Coastal Conservancy just got millions and millions of dollars through Prop 4 that the voters passed in the November election. It's going to provide a lot of money for these kinds of things. So we're hopeful, and we're reinvigorating that project as well. So,
Great.
yeah.
Thank you.
A lot of good news.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Thanks for working with Caltrans.
Any other board reports? Yes.
I just wanted to bring something up that was brought up at our council meeting, and it is to Caltrans, actually. There was some discussion about wanting to do, what would you call them? Buffers on Samoa Bridge for pedestrians. Is that something that Caltrans has ever considered? Is that something that has the potential to be moved forward?
I think that came up in the recent 255 corridor study that was just recently, I think, finalized. But I wouldn't be really the one to speak to that. But I could follow up for sure. Yeah. I thought you were going to maybe mention the Complete Streets listening session that's planned for March. So I know that's been... We've been trying to move that forward for a while, so I think that is finally scheduled. So that's good for 4th and 5th Street in Eureka.
Okay. That's not the one the one that's coming up on the 24th, that's for a different project. That's not even a Caltrans project. So do you have a date on that project or that meeting?
I think that it's just the second week in March is all I have on that. But I could, again, follow up with you on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Supervisor Madrone.
A little background on the Samoa Bridge, or bridges. Before they were built, there was a ferry service that ran daily between Samoa and Eureka. And when the bridge got built, there was a lot of talk about how, well, when you eliminate something like that, a ferry service, you need to accommodate some sort of a new situation, which unfortunately the bridge got built really rapidly, and it's not very wide. It's hard to provide that room for pedestrians. Some have thought maybe we can hang a pedestrian path underneath because it's so high, and we really don't have big ships going up the channel. I mean, there's oyster boats and a few things, but maybe there's a way to attach something underneath. Again, that's engineer stuff and everything else, but it has never really been looked at in depth, but it has had some conceptual reviews, I believe, over the years. And maybe you could bring something back to us at our next meeting and kind of see what it is we know about the evaluations, opportunities, things like that.
I think that was more the idea,
Yeah.
not building onto the sides of the bridge, but actually building maybe under.
Underneath. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and we could probably report out on the corridor plan for State Route 255 and just give a summary of what's included in there.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great idea. Well,
Chair, may I make a comment on that?
Yeah.
There's a group in Manila, the Manila Moves group, who've been working closely with Caltrans, but I would just request if that's going to be on the agenda, does that sound like that's going to be on next month's agenda? Because I will let them know and let Supervisor Wilson know, who's been working with them closely too.
So we can agendaize it if you want us to, or are you just going to provide a report, or do you want it actually on there as an agenda item?
I think however you see fit as
Okay,
best.
we'll
yeah.
keep in contact and I'll let you know.
Okay, if it's on the agenda, I will definitely give them. I'm sure you would get a lot of excited Manila community members here for that. Okay, thanks.
If I could speak to that, I think it as an agenda item, perhaps that might draw people in, and what we want is public engagement, right? So if as a presentation, people may or may not, but if they know that they have the opportunity to comment and bring their ideas forward, we might have a better chance of getting information. So I would appreciate probably more of an agendized item than I would just a presentation.
I am not quite sure the timeline for the opportunities for feedback, so we'll check in on that.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else at this time, we have a closed session following this meeting that if we're ready to adjourn, we will adjourn as the board now and reconvene in closed session. The closed session is pursuant to Government Code 54957B1. The HCOG board meet closed session regarding executive director recruitment process. So following that, we will adjourn.
Oh, you want to see?
That's funny.
Okay, well, we have completed our closed session, and to report out, we have a candidate that's been brought forward to the board, and our interim executive director is going to enter into negotiations with them. Do we need, just leave it
I
there?
think that's good.
All right. We will adjourn.
All right,
All right.
thank you.